A federal judge on Thursday sentenced Roger Stone, President Trump's longtime friend and political advisor, to serve 3 years and 4 months in prison for impeding a congressional investigation of Russian interference in the 2016 U.S. presidential election.
The penalty from U.S. District Judge Amy Berman Jackson comes after weeks of infighting over the politically charged case that threw the Justice Department into crisis, and it is likely not to be the final word. Even before the sentencing hearing began, Trump seemed to suggest on Twitter he might pardon Stone. With the proceedings ongoing, Trump questioned whether his ally was being treated fairly.
In a lengthy speech before imposing the penalty, Jackson seemed to take aim at Trump, saying Stone was not prosecuted for standing up for the president, he was prosecuted for covering up for the president. She also appeared to call out Attorney General William P. Barr, saying intervention to reduce career prosecutors' sentencing recommendation was unprecedented. But she said the politics surrounding the case had not influenced her final decision.
"The truth still exists, the truth still matters," Jackson said, echoing prosecutors' closing arguments at trial. Roger Stone's insistence that it doesn't, his belligerence, his pride in his own lies are a threat to our most fundamental institutions, to the foundations of our democracy. If it goes unpunished, it will not be a victory for one party or another, everyone loses.
She added, the dismay and disgust at the defendant's belligerence should transcend party.
Trump, meanwhile, weighed in publicly from afar, again bucking Barr's public and private warnings to stop talking about Justice Department criminal cases. In a tweet, the president compared Stone to former FBI Director James B. Comey, former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Trump has suggested that each of them should be charged.
They say Roger Stone lied to Congress, at CNN. Trump wrote during the hearing, tagging the news network, "Oh, I see, but so did Comey," and he also leaked classified information, for which almost everyone, other than crooked Hillary Clinton, goes to jail for a long time, and so did Andy McCabe, who also lied to the FBI. Fairness?
Overnight, Trump also hinted he could pardon Stone, tweeting a video clip in which Fox News host Tucker Carlson said, "President Trump could end this travesty in an instant with a pardon, and there are indications tonight that he will do that." Carlson noted a series of pardons and commutations the president granted this week.
Stone, 67, was convicted by a federal jury in November on 7 counts of lying to Congress and tampering with a witness about his efforts to learn about hacked Democratic emails related to Clinton.
Prosecutors said the longtime GOP operative lied during testimony to the House Intelligence Committee in September 2017 to conceal his central role in the Trump campaign's efforts to learn about computer files hacked by Russia and made public by WikiLeaks. Stone also threatened a witness who was an associate of his in an attempt to prevent the man from cooperating with lawmakers.
Stone, who did not speak in court, showed no visible emotion as the sentence was read. Emerging from the courtroom in a wide striped suit and polka-dot tie, he appeared calm.
"I have nothing to say," Stone said. "Thank you."
Stone, his wife and a large entourage exited the courthouse to a large crowd of photographers, supporters and antagonists. As he climbed into an SUV, protesters shouted, "Lock him up," while supporters yelled, "Pardon Roger Stone." Prosecutors
also left the courtroom without commenting, and a Justice Department spokeswoman later declined to comment.
On Friday, Stone had requested a new trial after Trump suggested the forewoman in Stone's case had significant bias. Jackson said previously she would delay implementation of his sentence until she resolves that request. In addition to prison, Jackson ordered Stone to pay a $20,000 fine and serve 2 years of supervised release. The penalty capped an unusual sentencing hearing in which Jackson sought not only to resolve disputes between prosecutors and defense attorneys, but also seek answers on the internal Justice Department haggling over what punishment the government would endorse. The initial team of 4 career prosecutors recommended that Jackson impose a term of 7 to 9 years, only to see Trump tweet about the matter, and Barr personally intervene. All 4 prosecutors then quit the case, with one leaving the government entirely, and their replacements filed a new recommendation suggesting 3 to 4 years was more typical in cases like Stone's. Through email leaks and propaganda, Russians sought to elect Trump, Mueller finds. Yet the new prosecutor in court Thursday defended his predecessors and argued for the same stiff sentencing enhancements as they had. The Department of Justice and the United States Attorney's Office is committed to following the law without fear, favor or political influence, Assistant U.S. Attorney John Crabb said.
This prosecution was and this prosecution is righteous."
Crabb said the court should impose a substantial period of incarceration, although he did not propose a specific number of months or years.
Jackson made clear she thought Stone's crimes were serious. She called his House Intelligence Committee testimony plainly false and a flat-out lie, and said his misdirection shut out important avenues for Congress to investigate. The judge said Stone knew his efforts to obtain damaging information from the anti-secrecy group WikiLeaks about Clinton, who was then running against Trump, could reflect badly on the president.
Jackson acknowledged the politics surrounding the situation,
and pressed Crabb on why prosecutors filed two very different sentencing memos. She asked why the Justice Department ultimately chose to recommend bucking the guidelines in the case, when department policies do not let prosecutors argue for a sentence below the guidelines without approval, and questioned why Crabb was in court at all.
"I fear that you know less about this case than possibly anybody else in the courtroom," Jackson said. "What is the government's position today?"
Crabb said the original prosecutors on the case had approval from U.S. Attorney Timothy Shea to make their recommendation and that their filing was done in good faith. He said his understanding was there had been a miscommunication between Barr and Shea, centered around what the expectations were from the Attorney General and what the appropriate filing would be. He apologized for the confusion, although even in court, his position seemed somewhat muddled. He refused to say whether he had written the softer sentencing recommendation, which bore his signature, because it would expose internal deliberations.
Prosecutors quit amid escalating Justice Department fight over Roger Stone's prison term.
Stone had asked for probation, citing his age and lack of criminal history.
Defense attorney Seth Ginsburg argued for mercy, saying Stone is a real person, not a media figure, not a political character but a real person, who is soon to be a great-grandfather. He emphasized Stone has devoted himself to various causes, including veterans, animal welfare and football players suffering from traumatic brain injuries, and has worked to bridge racial divides in this country.
That, he said, is who Mr. Stone really is, not the larger-than-life political persona that he plays on TV, but the real person who goes home every day to his wife and his family.
Ginsburg argued New York City comedian and radio host Randy Credico, the witness Stone was convicted of threatening, understood Stone was all bark and no bite. Credico appealed for leniency in a letter to the court, saying Stone, at his core, is an insecure person who craves and recklessly pursues attention. Prison is no remedy.
Jackson said that although 7 to 9 years was too harsh, probation would be too light. Stone, she said, had shown flagrant disrespect for the institutions of government established by the Constitution, including the Congress and this court.
She said read aloud some of Stone's profane texts threatening to kill Credico and steal his dog.
The defendant referred to this as banter, which it hardly is, the judge said. Nothing about this case was a joke, it wasn't funny, it wasn't a stunt and it wasn't a prank.
Jackson noted Stone threatened her personally during the trial and stirred up claims that the process was rigged. Doing so, she said, willfully increased the risk that someone with even poorer judgment than Stone would take action and put the entire courthouse in danger.
Barr's intervention in Stone's case set off a crisis for the Justice Department, where some prosecutors worried Trump, who tweeted the initial suggested penalty was horrible and very unfair, had pushed his chief law enforcement official to get involved in a criminal case because Stone was a friend. Barr, though, insisted in an ABC News interview he had made the decision independent of Trump, and issued a remarkable public rebuke, saying Trump's tweets make it impossible for me to do my job and to assure the courts, and the department that we're doing our work with integrity.
This week, those close to Barr said the Attorney General has told Trump advisers he has considered resigning over the president's tweets. Trump, though, continued to tweet about the Stone case. Earlier this week, he suggested his friend deserved a new trial, just as the Justice Department, with Barr's blessing, made clear it had opposed Stone's request on that front. Like prosecutors, Barr has called Stone's prosecution righteous, and added, I was happy that he was convicted.
Barr pushes back against Trump's criticism of Justice Department, says tweets make it impossible for me to do my job.
Stone is one of 6 Trump advisers and confidants who have either been convicted or pleaded guilty in connection with special counsel Robert S. Mueller III's probe. That list includes former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort, former deputy campaign chairman Rick Gates, former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, former Trump lawyer Michael Cohen and former campaign advisor George Papadopoulos.
Stone's two-week trial in November refocused attention on the Trump campaign's keen appetite for dirt on its political opponents. The trial included testimony from former 2016 deputy campaign manager Gates, who testified he overheard a July 2016 phone call in which Trump himself seemed to discuss WikiLeaks with Stone.
Roger Stone guilty on all counts of lying to Congress, witness tampering.
The trial also highlighted Trump's ongoing standoff with congressional Democrats, then conducting an impeachment inquiry into whether the president pressured Ukraine to bolster his 2020 re-election bid. Trump directed the White House to withhold documents and block testimony in the inquiry, which ended in a Senate acquittal.
Spencer Shue and John Wagner contributed to this report.
Who is Amy Berman Jackson, Roger Stone's sentencing judge?
Through email leaks and propaganda, Russians sought to elect Trump, Mueller finds.
Roger Stone guilty on all counts of lying to Congress, witness tampering.
Local newsletters, local headlines 8 a.m., afternoon buzz 4 p.m.
Like Post Local on Facebook, follow at Post Local on Twitter, latest local news.